Hi, everyone. It's Ryan Fowler here with my good friends, Tim Costello, Jordan Kurtz, Inner Game Group Live. We have a good one today. Gabor Mate is going to make some shocking revelations today, and we're going to talk about it because it all ties into subconscious belief system, subconscious trauma, the connection between our mind and our body. He's going to be mentioning his book, When the Body Says No, which I think came out around 15, 20 years ago at this point, but which has some startling statistics about cancer and repressed emotions and all sorts of stuff. And it really kind of highlights the interesting thing about everything Dr. Mate is about to say is it has all been extensively researched. Scientific, university level research, but the medical community has not adopted it. Kind of like something else the medical community has not adopted that they should, but they don't because they don't see the money in it. At least that's, the working hypothesis that I have. So we're going to dive in. It's going to be great. But before that happens, Jordan and then Tim, introduce yourselves. Welcome to the show, guys.
Jordan, you're up, buddy.
Hello. Yes, I'm back. I'm back. Hi, I'm Jordan Kurtz. Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. I'm a hypnotist like these guys, and I help you find and locate your limiting beliefs and remove them so you can live life for whatever matters most to you. And if you're interested, I have my own YouTube channel now, and I've started doing live streams every Wednesday. So if you're interested in that, if you want more of me, come check out my channel as well.
And what is your channel, Jordan?
Just Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis.
Jordan Kurtz Hypnosis. All right.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Tim Costello with TimCostelloHypnosis.com. And like these two fine gentlemen next to me and above me here we are hypnotists. And what that means is we simply use a method to help you achieve a state where we can work with your subconscious and rewire and reprogram the maladaptive programs that are not serving you. We're going to talk about some of those today because you can't escape it when you start reading Dr. Gabor Mate. By the way, Brian, I just looked it up. I didn't know this before, but this book is 21, almost 22 years old.
Yeah. Wow. And the science has been out that long or longer.
Absolutely. And what we're going to learn today, along with Dr. Gabor Mate's book, there's a lady out there named Casey Means, and she has written a book that is very hard-hitting towards the health industry. And she's been interviewed on a number of podcasts, including Tucker Carlson, where we learn from them that the health industry is not about health, it's about sickness, because that's how they make their money. And
managing sickness. Yeah.
Even though there are ways to help people become healthier,
they ignore that.
There's very short-term money in that and not very much long-term money. Now, we're not going to poo-poo healthcare industry because if you break your leg, you need to get to a doctor and you need to get it fixed. But what we're talking about is the internal diseases that are caused by the stress in our lives, which is very much linked to the psychological trauma that Dr. Mate will talk about. And what we do, hopefully, is help relieve you of some of that psychological trauma so that it bothers you less and your body can heal.
And almost everyone this is helpful for. It's in the 90 percentile.
Hello, Denise. Hello, Gabrielle. Good to see you guys today.
Hey guys, yep. And then Tim's wife Carrie is watching, and of course we have our good friend P-Dubs on. So I say we go ahead and just start diving into it. It's a Democracy Now! Interview of Gabor Mate. It's like 15 years old, 14 years old.
Yep.
But that's the thing is this stuff's been around a long time. It hasn't been picked up. And Dr. Gabor Mate talks about the fact that it hasn't been picked up And what we do hasn't been picked up. And we don't just do hypnosis. We really, you have stage hypnotists doing hypnosis. We optimize your subconscious belief system, your core identity beliefs. Once you get those optimal, it changes everything. We've seen it time and time again. And it can relieve stress. And we are all about getting connected with who you really are. Anything negative in you, let's get it out of you. We don't just, you see these people go to therapy and every week they just talk about your feelings. No, let's fix the trauma. So that's what we're about. And that is really core to this, these clips today we're looking at. So go ahead and start playing, Jordan. We'll just take it from there.
Sounds good.
Democracy Now, Dr. Mate.
Need a little volume on that if you can.
This connection between stress, the mind-body connection.
The traditional medicines of China for three.
I'll go back like 5 seconds because I adjusted it. No, not that.
3,000 years.
That's what I meant. Okay.
About this connection between stress, the mind-body connection.
The traditional medicines of China for 3,000 years, the Ayurvedic medicine of India, and the tribal shamanic medicines of all cultures around the world have always taken for granted that mind and body can't be separated. Now, Western medicine has cleaved the two apart for really 2,000 years. Socrates already criticized the doctors of his day for separating the mind from the body. And the irony, in fact, the tragedy is that now we have the Western science that shows incontrovertibly and in great detail that mind and body can't be separated. And so that any attempt to do so leaves the medical practitioner short of many tools to help clients. And of course, it leaves patients short of what they need for their own healing. The point now is that the emotional centers of the brain, which regulate our behaviors and our responses and our reactions, are physiologically connected with, and we know exactly how they're connected with the immune system, the nervous system, and the hormonal apparatus. In fact, it's no longer possible scientifically to speak of these as separate systems, as if immunity was separate from emotions, as if the nervous system was separate from the hormonal apparatus. There's one system, and they're wired together by the nervous system itself and joined together by chemical messengers that they all secrete. And so that whatever happens emotionally has an impact immunologically and vice versa. So, for example, we know now that the white cells in the circulation of the blood can manufacture every hormone that the brain can manufacture, and vice versa, so that the brain and the immune system are always talking to another. So in short, we have one system. The science that studies it is called psychoneuroimmunology, and scientifically it's not even controversial, but it's completely lacking from medical practice.
What?
Anything you want to say about that?
Just that he's saying the science is there. The science is so freaking established on this, but completely lacking in medical practice. He's going to say more about that, but I want to point that out because the mental health industry has the exact same problem.
Now, if you ever doubt that the hormonal, physical, and mental systems are not connected, the next time you walk through a spider web and it catches you across your face and your arms go flailing and you can't run fast enough and you nearly, have a heart attack, I can tell you hormones are flowing, fight or flight is fully engaged, and you are physically moving somewhere and the adrenaline's pumping. So all of these systems that Dr. Mate is talking about, although are individually separately managed systems within the body, they all work together for the betterment of the physicality that they're in.
Yeah. Now, I would also mention that about a year ago, we did a show on trauma, and there was a doctor on there, or rather a scientist. And I think they had 11 types of trauma they categorized. One was like a parent's in jail. The other's like a parent's alcoholic. The other's like physical abuse, sexual abuse. you know, each one of these things severe, and they said he said 11% of the population had or it might have been 17, but 11% of the population had half of these traumas. And they studied these people with this very severe trauma and over many years, and what they noted is on average their life expectancy was 20 years less than normal.
Yeah, that's linked to the ACE exam.
Trauma.
Yeah, that's linked to the ACEs exam. And Nadine Burke-Harris talks about that in her TED Talk. And on top of that is linked to another fellow who does some talking about the study that you're referring to, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yep.
But then a doctor's not going to look at that at all when you go in for a checkup. A mental health practitioner, but you know, I've seen another video where Dr. Gabor Mate says many psychologists don't even understand that trauma is the root cause of depression and chronic anxiety, like an anxiety disorder. Not all anxiety is bad, of course, but when you have it all the time or when it's holding you back, psychological trauma is at the root of it.
Yep.
And a lot of psychologists don't even acknowledge that or fully understand the impact.
I think Dr. Bradshaw or John Bradshaw, not Dr. Bradshaw. Yeah, John Bradshaw mentioned in his book that toxic shame is the root of all addiction.
Yep.
So it's related. It's all there together.
Not just things like addiction though, but the good Dr. Mate here is going to go into cancer, asthma, just all the Alzheimer's, all these things tied to the effects of psychological trauma, essentially. So, Jordan,
and I'll also add, you know, intuitively, it's like, how do you think your brain controls, I don't know, your hands and feet? Like, you've got neurons that have to run from your brain to there. So
it's all connected.
It's like it has to be connected. That's how people are paralyzed when it's not connected. So, I think that it's interesting that he uses that word cleaver to kind of describe, and using the word cleaver sort of implies that there was a conscious decision made to separate those two, rather than assuming those are together. And that wasn't by accident.
And again, today, with all of the specialists running throughout the medical industry, they have cleaved even physical systems into different parts. And that's a good thing, because you need an ear, nose, and throat person, and you need a foot person. I mean, every one of those are linked, and physical need to be figured out and helped. But they all work together, right? I mean, your hips are connected to your feet through a couple of bones in your legs, and they're going to affect one or the other.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
So Gab says trauma is trauma in terms of how the body systems react. And she is a psychologist. She watches me turn pens at night. That's why she's here today, because we talked a little bit about that last night. But, you know, Gabrielle, just to make one definition further, and Gabor Mate actually divined this for us, is trauma is not what happens to you, but trauma is how you feel about what happens to you. So that's the trauma we're talking about, is not the traumatic event or the tragic event. We're talking about that psychological trauma where it's your subconscious programming, which is, again, an event happens over and over, and you figure out exactly from your point of view what that event means, and you're tying that to an emotion. And we can see abuse coming into that, where you would think it's all your fault that you're getting beat up all the time by your parents. You would eventually fall into, I'm not good enough, or I don't belong to this group, etc. That's the trauma that we're talking about, notwithstanding the physical trauma of abuse as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure Gabrielle sees that in her practice all of the time. Welcome to the show, Gabrielle. Gabrielle, I'd invite you to go to the video section of this YouTube channel and watch some of those client interviews, testimonials, and if that intrigues you, let's have a conversation. I'd love to reach out to those in the mental health community and connect and learn from each other. So thank you, Gabrielle. And I guess we'll keep on going unless you guys have more.
Nope, let's roll.
My only other thought was I've had a few doctors who have asked like how stressful my life has been, what's been going on. It seems like not all the not all the doctors are like this, but it's not mainstream just yet. But I've had a couple good doctors who have tried to avoid seems like they've tried to avoid prescribing things and more asked about my lifestyle with various conditions I've been seen for, which is good.
Okay.
All right, let's keep going.
Do you mean, Dr. Mate, by the mind-body, by the Bermuda Triangle?
Oh, well, the Bermuda Triangle.
Hey, Jordan, could you add some volume to that?
I did get turned down again.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
For example, let me give you a couple of examples.
Is that better?
Yeah.
3 years ago or 4 years ago, a study presented at the Heart and Stroke Foundation's International Congress on Women's Health, a study that was written up in the online version of a major North American medical journal called Circulation, showed that women, over a 10-year period, that followed 1,700 women, over a 10-year period, women who were unhappily married and didn't express their emotions were 4 times as likely to die as those women who were unhappily married and did express their feelings. In other words, the non-expression of emotion was associated with a 400% increase in the death rate. And this study was done in the States, part of a major population study. Now, you'd think that study would send every physician in North America trying to figure out the mind-body connection. But these studies get published and they sink without a trace. There was a study 2 years ago that showed that
stop that right there. Just real quick. That's what I'm talking about. The studies get published and then they just go down a hole because there's no money in it. And if there's no money in it, then the medical community doesn't pick it up in general, by and large. Now, I think very slowly this is starting to change, but it's going way too slow. So, it is what it is, but we don't just make it up when we say that, some people actually think the medical community by and large does the most cutting edge stuff. Well, in a few areas they do cutting edge stuff, and then in many other important areas they completely ignore the data because it doesn't benefit them financially to incorporate that into their practice.
Right.
I mean, that's the best working theory I have, if anyone has a better one. But the model is the science has been established. I did a 4-part series where a Stanford neuroscientist says, if you meet this condition, there's 5 conditions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can go in and massively rewire your brain like that. And that is instantly what we do. And then he even says, no one's doing this.
We are.
He says the science is very well established here. But I'm a professor. I profess. I'm not a practitioner. That's, Dr. Huberman. And he says hardly anyone's taking advantage of this. Well, when you combine hypnosis with core identity reprogramming, we call this superneuroplasticity. You can do it. The science says you can do it. Mainstream's not doing it. So, yeah, we can keep going.
You know what I love most about Dr. Andrew Huberman is I forget the name of the researchers that he referred to, but he referred to 2 people who did a tremendous amount of research. And he says in all of their research, they only got one thing wrong. And the only thing they got wrong was that you can't change your brain past the age of 25. And science pretty much then was established that at 25 years old, give or take, depending upon the person, your subconscious programming is etched in stone and it's going to run the rest of your life. But Dr. Huberman has found where you can make the brain neuroplastic again and change it for the permanent.
And that is accepted, but just not the ability to rapidly do it in one shot. That's what the community doesn't practice.
Correct. There are a number of ways to do it. We do it the most rapid way, in the most complete and permanent way. So that's the good part. The bad part is not enough of us are doing it.
Yep.
And I've seen, so what's interesting, and I want to point this out, is that the women in the study that express their emotions versus holding them in, that, you know, where do you hold in emotions? You're holding them in your body. They have to go somewhere. And so if you hold them in your body, you're essentially building up that stress, that cortisol, those hormones, that negative energy is being stored in your body. It's not a very scientific term.
Yeah,
But
well, nervous system is probably the just best term overall, just your nervous system. Nerves and neurons located throughout our body. Neurons processing data and also nerves.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I found that interesting. They didn't just compare unhappy to happy. They compared unhappy to unhappy, but one of them expressed. I mean, that's very. I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll keep going.
And depressed are themselves, the children are more likely to have asthma. Again, the mind-body connection. You think that study alone would send every physician running to figure out the mind-body connection. But again, these studies are done, they disappear without a trace, and they have no impact on medical practice. And that's what I mean by the Bermuda Triangle.
Oh, that was my other comment. Disappear without a trace. I'm curious. I think he means they're intentionally buried. Like I
don't think they're buried. I think they're ignored.
Yeah.
Oh, at a certain point, what's the difference between being intentionally ignored versus buried? Or like, do you think they just don't know and don't care, or they know and don't care, or they don't know to begin with?
I think the powers that be, it's like, oh, look, a new study came out. Oh, well, that's not going to make us any more money. All right, never mind then.
That's exactly how it works. You figure there's some boss at some organization somewhere that's reading the latest research, and as they're thumbing through it, they're thinking, how can we bring this into our practice and make money off it? Because their whole job is to grow the business, increase the revenue, et cetera, et cetera. If they find something like this and they're actually fixing people mentally, right? And there's nothing wrong with broken bones. We're not talking about that. We're talking about mental health. If they fix somebody, there's no reason to put them on a drug. There's no reason to have 400 sessions over the next 10 years. There's just no money path in it. Look at all of one of us. Most of us never do more than 2 sessions with a client, and there are rare clients that go past 2.
Well, yeah, it's about 90%. I would say 90% of the people do sessions with us. It's 1 or 2.
Yep.
And then there's a few will do 3, and then maybe like 5% of my clients will be at like 5 or 6.
Yeah. So
and they just have a lot to fix, and they're really dedicated, and
right. A super majority of our clientele see us 1 or 2 times.
Yeah, about
that's
90%.
Huge. That's a terrible financial model, except that the pool is so huge, we will get tired servicing that pool.
Yeah, at this point, there's just too many sick people. So if it's like, well, we do 1 or 2 sessions and you're good, it's like, well, all right, 1 down, 500 million to go.
That's right.
I also think about,
go planet wide, like 2 or 3 billion.
I also think about just collective incentive of business. If I'm looking for studies that, like, there's an inherent bias in the way you're looking for information. So it might not even be a conscious, we don't want that, but it naturally, those kinds of studies naturally get filtered out of, you're not even looking in that bin of studies. You're only looking in the bin of, trying to prescribe something. And so if there's no, there has to be, you have to be incentivized.
Yeah, you're talking about it doesn't fit in the existing model.
Correct.
The mainstream model.
Yeah. And so it may or may not even be intentional. It's just, if the incentive is to prescribe something, why would you spend your, company's money and energy and time in looking at something that doesn't result and that ultimate end goal.
Yeah, and they don't even know how to deal with the mind-body connection. It's like, what's a doctor going to do? Oh, get some exercise and go to a therapist. I don't know what else to tell you there. You know, they should learn, and it's not taught in universities. Why? Now, a really big question is why, if this latest science comes out and then there's multiple, you know, a dozen peer-reviewed studies affirming the mind-body connection, or 2 or 3 dozen, however many they have, why is it not adopted by universities? Well, from what I've seen, Sabine Hassenfender, she talks about this. She was a PhD physician, PhD in physics, and she either taught or worked at a university, and she said universities are all about money as well. Where do they get their funding? Well, their biggest funding is from the pharmaceutical industry. So they're not going to adopt anything that's going to rock that boat, that would make pharmaceutical industry. Now, I think there will always be a need for medication.
Yes.
But I also think there's massive amounts of overprescription, and there's certain things that could be fixed, so you would no longer need a prescription, whereas the current model of mental health leads many people to be on certain medications for the rest of their life, which is a huge profit potential for the pharmaceutical industries, as opposed to fixing them, and that annuity goes away.
Yep.
Let's go one layer high. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah,
that's right.
They're not going to teach that.
While we're on this topic, let's look at Gabrielle's comment. She says that's an incredible success rate. Do you have people come back later for follow-up, relapses, etc., or in general, are 2 or 3 sessions enough? So what we're doing, Gab, is it's easily described by peeling an onion. Most of us are going to have 1 or 2 very large traumas that are maladaptively serving us every single minute of the day. And they're holding us back. They're keeping us down. They're not letting us move forward. Once we get those 1 or 2 or 3 large ones and rid the person of all of the trapped anger, resentment, or rage, then what happens is over time, they will notice an improved life. They will start achieving things. They'll start discovering their authentic self. And because they're not so traumatized now, they will start noticing little things that will pop up, right? Things that they didn't notice before because the other ones were so overwhelming. What we have, and it's actually available before you see any one of us, is a free self-hypnosis program. And some people,
there's a banner right down there.
Ryan pointing down. Look at the thing going across the bottom of the screen. Some clients will actually use that first, clear a couple of traumas, and then maybe come to us for maybe some more complex traumas they can't figure out. Or they will see us first, we'll clear some traumas, and then they will go use the self-hypnosis to take care of the little ones, because they don't need to come back to us. We literally teach them how to fix their own brain. It's actually a horrible financial model, except that the pool is so huge, we've got unlimited client base almost. So hopefully that answers your question a bit. And then we'll talk about later on where those traumas come from. Go ahead, Ryan. You want to point that out?
Yeah, we've done shows in the past. I got to dig up the studies, but there's 2 university studies. One found that 90% of people are at least mildly codependent of their students. Another found 50% were moderately to severely codependent. So we have, an unlimited supply of people, even just people, codependency is their only thing. There's just so much to fix. But with that said, we fix the major maladaptive subconscious beliefs first. There's 5 types of subconscious trauma. 3 are toxic shame. I'm not good enough. I don't belong or fit in. I can't get what I want. And then there's trapped anger, resentment, rage. And then number 5, feeling unsafe. It's all subconscious trauma, which are these maladaptive core subconscious beliefs tied to painful feelings that just cause all sorts of problems. So when we rewire someone, typically, almost always that fix is permanent, but everything Tim said is true. You start noticing some context specific subconscious, maladaptive subconscious programs. Like every time I'm in this one situation, I'm messed up, like fear of failure. You don't feel it all the time. You feel fine, but when you fail, you feel horrible. So now you procrastinate about anything you can fail, or have anxiety about anything you can fail at. So we'll knock that down, and then you go through life and you're like, wow, I'm so much better. I'm permanently better. And something else comes up. So I fixed my core trauma, just self-hypnosis 12 years ago, fixed most of the major issues by just listening to audios. And honestly, I was half-assing it, but it took me like 2 months, permanently gone with self-hypnosis. One-on-one sessions are even much more powerful than that. And then I didn't really start seriously dating again as a single man for about 5 years. When I started dating, all of a sudden, all this new trauma the women were traumatizing me. They're just triggering stuff, all these insecurities, clear that out, and then later on, other stuff comes on. So oftentimes we get into new situations, stressful situations, trauma or maladaptive subconscious belief systems we didn't even know were there are now getting triggered. And then you clear that out. So the big stuff we permanently get gone, very quickly. That's the 1 or 2 sessions. And then there's just more context specific stuff will get triggered. And once it gets triggered, you use the method, you clear it out, it's gone forever, on to the next one. And so and that's permanent, and life gets better and better and better. I will say some sort of maintenance program is good, because life does have a way of beating us down. You get on social media, there's negative messages. You get on, the news media, there's negative messages. There is stress and trauma. So some sort of ongoing maintenance program can be helpful as well. But the belief systems tied to the painful feelings, that's the trauma, that gets rewired out permanently and often very rapidly. 1 or 2 sessions, very, very typical. And, I'd say 5 to 8% of the people who come to us, we can't help, at least not in the first session. So, but that is a very high success rate. Yeah. And that's how it goes.
Gabrielle makes a comment. I suppose it must take a certain willingness and bravery to look at their traumas.
Oh yeah.
Now, so Ryan is and I'm going to use the F word really loud here, a freaking genius. When we were in business together 20 years ago, 20 years ago, he likes to read very technical court cases, codes within state statutes, all that kind of stuff. And then he goes to bed and his brain percolates over this stuff, and he comes up with these theories, and then he writes them down and goes back to sleep or whatever. And then he gets up the next day and he spends a couple of weeks proving the theory correct or incorrect. Absolutely fantastic way. And we had a great time in business.
I did write the book with a law professor with my old job.
Correct. Yeah. And that was in the asset protection world. In healing himself, he took tons of stuff in, and he has come up with what all three of us use, Gabrielle. It's called Dive to the 5. And what we're going to do is we're going to help the client identify the trauma that they're dealing with. And the very first question is on this Dive to the 5 is, what do you struggle with? Yeah. Super simple question. What do you struggle with? Do you have anxiety? Do you have depression, procrastination, addiction, porn addiction, video game addiction, food addiction, drug addiction? I mean, doesn't matter what it is. You just write down what you're struggling with. And
some are just like, I'm too scared to talk to girls.
That's right.
Or I
can't
procrastinate.
Imagine how we can take one of those little things and dive right down in to the 5 types of subconscious trauma that Ryan mentioned early. I'm not good enough. I don't fit in. I can't get what I want. I got a bunch of rage or resentment trapped, or I don't feel safe or secure. And all of those can be broken down. We're all just people, and we all just have feelings. So we use this Dive to the 5 process, and it is tremendously courageous on the part of the client to start doing this inward look. It is scary as hell for a lot of people.
And a lot of people want one-on-one sessions instead of the self-hypnosis to have someone guide them and support them.
Correct, because sometimes you can identify easy stuff yourself and just get rid of it.
Yeah.
But for more complex issues, we're there to literally hold their hand through the whole process. And we do the dive to the 5 outside of hypnosis. So we are talking to the actual person, their conscious mind, and the things they're going through. And then we go into hypnosis. We ramp those traumas up and we clear them out. And then we reprogram that so that their computer, called the brain, is now running on good software. And it is an immediate and permanent effect. It is amazing to participate in and amazing to watch. Go ahead.
All right. I think I'm ready to watch more of the video. Anything, Jordan?
I was going to add on.
I think Jordan's got some stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. So I'm curious and I like to experiment with the hypnosis stuff. So I don't even know how many sessions I've done on myself to test out various things and different methods. What Ryan brought up earlier is, typically 2 to 3 for the biggest things. And then, I'll give you an example. A couple months ago, I noticed that a very, very specific thing triggered me. It was at the end of the workday, and my girlfriend had just left my apartment. At the same, I work from home, for reference, and for some reason those two things combined, I started to get anxiety around, and I'm like, what? But I would never have even discovered that subconscious program unless those two really specific things would have happened, and I went into hypnosis and cleared it.
Yeah, what is this about? Yeah, you're like, I'm feeling this.
Right. But
it would never the process to go in and find out what's at your core. And then
exactly. Yeah. But the point is, like, I kind of run sessions as needed now because I have to wait for super, super specific things to trigger me. So it's really just optimization at this point. And so that's
what's really interesting. Yeah. And I love this about Jordan is a Ryan Fowler client. That's how they first got together, and Jordan wanted to become a hypnotist because
I've had 7 or 8 of my clients become hypnotherapists.
And it's cool. I've had one client of mine become a hypnotherapist too. So Ryan is
who's that?
His name
because it changes their life, and they're like, "Shit, it was the bomb. I gotta dive deep," and they do, and then they help.
I don't know if he wants to be identified publicly yet. But,
yeah, no problem.
But for him, I did 3 really big sessions for him, and he was just like, "Wow, I can't. It's not YouTube friendly to say what he told me, but let's just say it was impactful for him."
Nice.
This is a family show, right?
Yeah.
All right. Let's keep going, guys.
That's good.
Good comment.
Is that we have the research, we just don't pay attention to it. It's like if it never happened.
You talk about emotions like anger, sharing with our immune system the same role of defending our boundaries, saying when we repress emotions, we may also repress our immune defenses. How does that play out in various diseases?
Well, when I looked at the kind of people that would be coming under my care in palliative care, but also the kind of people who would get sick when I was in family practice, a number of salient characteristics presented themselves. One was the repression of anger. People didn't know how to express negative emotion. They were afraid to do so, or didn't know when they were angry. People were pleasers. They tried to always not to disappoint other people. They never knew how to say no. They took on everything without a murmur because they saw their role as always being the caregivers and the caretakers. And they had an exceedingly powerful sense of duty, role, and responsibility. Now, if you look at the role of healthy assertion of boundaries and anger, for example, it's actually there to protect you. I'm talking about healthy anger. It's not there to attack anybody. It's just there to protect your boundaries. That's the same role as the immune system have. The immune system also functions like a brain. it has memory, it has reactive capacity, and it has learning capacity. In fact, the immune system has been called the floating brain, and it's an interaction with the brain up in our heads. Now, women, for example, with breast cancer who don't know how to express anger, they've been shown to have diminished activity of a group of immune cells called natural killer cells. Natural killer cells attack foreign bacteria, virus, and also malignant cells. In other words, they protect our boundaries. Women who don't know how to express their boundaries emotionally, they suppress their boundaries immunologically, and therefore they're more likely to develop disease. The same is true, of course, of men. So that the immune system is in constant interaction with our emotional responses. In another study with the immune system, medical students under the stress of examination were found to have diminished activity of their natural killer cells, these immune cells. But those students who were emotionally isolated were most likely to have diminished activity of their immune system. In other words, another fact that's important is our relationship with other people. And the Los Angeles UCLA psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Siegel, has coined the phrase interpersonal neurobiology to indicate that our biology of our brains, but indeed of our whole bodies, is an interaction with our personal relationships. So how we express ourselves in those relationships, or how we suppress ourselves, has a lot to do with our health.
Any comments there for now? I was going
to say, I love part of what he just said in there, and I'm not sure if many people would catch that, but he talks about women with breast cancer who can't set their mental, emotional boundaries. Those boundaries now resort to their immunological system, and the immunological system will set boundaries within the body and help cause disease and limit things that are good for their bodies. I mean, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk's book comes into full front. The body keeps the score, where all of that trauma is stored within your body in different ways, causing not good things.
Yeah. Now, this video clip was taken. I think he talks about his book, The Body Says No, later on. There's actually two parts. If you add them together, it's like 18 minutes. I don't know if we'll get it to it all. We'll try. But he says some very interesting things in his book, The Body Says No. One scientific study they did is these scientists went to these doctors. I think the oncologist is for cancer.
Yes.
Oncologist. And they did a study where they had the doctors, when patients came in, they would just have the doctors mark down whether or not, based on that person's personality, the doctor thought the cancer test would come up positive or negative. And these doctors, not only did most of them say, yeah, a certain type of person tends to get the positive results, but the doctors were able to predict, solely based on the personality of the person they interacted in that came in for testing, 96% accuracy whether or not that person would test positive or negative for cancer, solely based on the client's interaction, the patient's personality. So the doctor would interact with the patient, guess whether or not the test is going to say positive or negative, and the doctor was right 96% of the time.
I'd call that an A+.
And yeah, and the thing they looked at is, was this a person who had repressed emotions or not? That was the number one indicator, is repressed emotions. So people, they had a certain type of rigidity, or they were wearing a mask, or they're too nice, they're too appropriate, they're not embracing their real authentic self, and they mute their emotions because, a lot of kids growing up are taught, oh, it's wrong for me to feel a certain way. It's wrong for me to express certain aspects of who I am. I need to be something I'm not in order to be acceptable. And so, there's all sorts of reasons people repress their emotions, but it's not safe in one way or another, or they're shamed, or just whatever. So they learn this and they go through their life not being their true authentic self, maybe feeling ashamed of certain aspects within them. And this is where people start projecting. They don't want to acknowledge certain things in them. So it's buried in their subconscious, and then they project on it. There's it's a broad, I won't even dive into it. It's just a completely different.
But that's the point.
But when you're repressing emotions, that's the number one personality trait. And these doctors can tell that just by talking to the patient that they're going to have cancer.
And how long do doctors talk with patients for? 30 minutes, an hour, maybe at a time ish?
Less.
But you said the right word. They're projecting their inner feelings by their body language, by how they put themselves together, by how they present themselves. And so, I think the more you look for it, you're able to pick, at least I assume all three of us are able to see other people's body language now. It's like you can't unsee it. It's like you always see. We can tell within almost the first 30 seconds what's the self-esteem of this person right when you meet them. It's so evident. And then how you listen to how they talk. Do they generally talk about themselves positively or negatively? I mean, I listen for these little self digs that they will do. They'll talk. Yeah. Just they'll make fun of themselves, but almost not really jokingly. They'll what's the phrase?
They beat themselves up before you can beat them up.
I used to do that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
And there's all sorts of, reasons for people repressing, or, there's all sorts of outward behaviors that signal inward trauma, but repression leads to cancer. Repression of your authentic self. Another thing Dr. Gabor Mate said, he did palliative care for a long time, which is taking care of terminally ill people. And he said in an interview that the number one regret people on their deathbed have is not living their true authentic life. They end up doing what others want for them to do, or what society thinks is acceptable, and not just going for it and living the life that they really wanted to live. And that's the number one regret. That's also repressing who you are, which would probably had a lot to do with why these people are terminally ill. A lot of them. So, anyway,
there is another study
that
concerns breast cancer. And I forget the name of the study. I have to go do some research and find it again. I saved it somewhere, but I got so many saved I can't find it. There is a genetic marker for breast cancer.
Yep.
Yet, when they surveyed all of this group of people, mainly women, that had breast cancer, they found that a very small percentage of those women actually had the genetic marker, which meant it wasn't the genes that was causing the breast cancer. It was repressed emotions. It was psychological trauma, or maybe there was some other contributing factor, but it wasn't the genetic link. And that is amazing.
Well, yeah, the genetics are a factor, but they're often not the main determining factor.
That's right.
Yeah.
Send me that study, Tim. I may or may not have some relevant relatives who might be interested in that study.
Yeah.
But, okay, let's try and get through this. We'll see. We'll see if we can.
Okay.
Let's get through it if we can.
You talk particularly about autoimmune diseases and their connection, that mind-body connection, like, for example, rheumatoid arthritis.
A case example I give in the book is a young woman who was preparing Rosh Hashanah dinner one night for the family, Rosh Hashanah being the Jewish New Year that falls in September. I called her Rachel in the book, and she was working very hard. She was at her mother's place cooking dinner, and she was in a real hurry because she had to finish by 5 o'clock when her brother was going to arrive with his family, and he didn't like her. He didn't want to be at the dinner. So she had to finish the dinner and leave before he arrived. And I asked her, are you serious? You're making dinner for a family that you're only going to take part in yourself? Why? And she said, well, because the family should be together for Rosh Hashanah, shouldn't they? Well, she never finished the meal. Her body said no. She came down with severe inflammation on all her joints, and she was rushed to the hospital with her first malignant outbreak of rheumatoid arthritis. And that self-suppression is typical for people that develop rheumatoid arthritis. It's also typical for people that develop ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. I talk about the example of Lou Gehrig, if I may tell you about that. Lou Gehrig was a great baseball player, a teammate of Babe Ruth and the New York Yankees, and he set a record for consecutive games played that stood for nearly 60 years. Now, Gehrig wasn't just a great athlete. He was also dutiful. It's not that he was never hurt. At one point, his hands were x-rayed. It turns out his fingers had been fractured 17 separate times, and his teammates described him as grimacing like a maddened monkey in agony when he fielded the ball. But he never took himself out of a game because he was too dutiful to his own self-image and also to the fans and to the owners. Now, that sense of responsibility and not looking after yourself is totally typical of everybody who develops ALS. And it goes back to their childhoods because just like with the woman with rheumatoid arthritis, she was a failure the moment she was born because her mother conceived her to keep the marriage together with the father. The marriage broke up, and she never had the feeling that she was accepted and liked for who she was. Therefore, she had to become this dutiful caregiver. Lou Gehrig's father was an alcoholic, and Gehrig learned very early.
Do you want to?
No, just
keep going.
toxic shame. I'm not
You
good
said
enough.
toxic shame.
All right, we got a couple more seconds here, then we can comment.
In life, that he had to take care of others, as the children of alcoholics often do, and that then became his pattern until he could no longer drag himself around the baseball diamond because of the ALS, which in North America, of course, is known as Lou Gehrig's disease.
We're talking to Dr. Gabor Mate, the author of 4 best-selling books.
All right, that's pretty much it.
And then there's part 2.
Yep.
Oh, you want to cover part 2 next week, or do you want to? How long is part 2?
We might get a few minutes in.
Okay, sure, I can pull it up. Anything to add while I pull it up?
It's just everything we're talking about. You know, what we do is really, really critical. We find these beliefs. I'm not good enough. The real me is not acceptable. I put others first because I don't matter as much. That's a type of toxic shame. You know, the good beliefs we put in. And by the way, as soon as I get done with all these estate planning projects, you know what we're going to do is we're going to hit up salespeople and help them because you did this for a salesperson, 10x his sales. Admittedly, you know, he was struggling before, but 10x his sales, now doing much better. I've done it for half a dozen salespeople, double their sales, triple their sales. It's not just when we get these, we don't just get the bad trauma out. We put the best core belief systems in you, which is I'm enough as I am. I have massive value just for who I am. I don't need to do or say anything to be good enough or to have value. Now, that doesn't mean you get what you want. You're entitled to what you want, but if you do the work, you can get what you want. So we put beliefs in along the lines, you know, because I matter, what I want matters. So it's okay to want what I want and to go for it. And the more we do anything, the better we get at it until we learn, we grow, we get enough skill until we get what we want. You put this in your core. We've done it for salespeople, and we routinely 50% increase in sales, double, triple. You know, you had that one guy, 10x his sales. So it's get the trauma out, put the best core beliefs in. And you see these people, they're putting others first. They're like, oh, I guess I don't matter, so I have to sacrifice myself for the good of the whole or whatever. Well, there is a belief tied to that, which I'm not as worthy as other people. I'm going to sacrifice for others, but not give anything to myself. That's tied to toxic shame. I'm not good enough. Those were just the 2 people he was talking about had that. And yeah, you got to get it out. It could literally save your life someday.
Denise had a comment. I spent 5 years trying to figure out where this lymphoma came from. No one in my family has had it. It's all coming together for me. Yeah, I mean, again, we're not medical doctors.
We're not medical practitioners. We're giving our opinion.
Absolutely. But certainly
if
that's
you feel not good enough, let's fix that. And maybe, you know, could be a factor.
Yeah. I was just thinking about the woman who's making dinner for her family. The stress and anxiety.
Yeah,
and
we're not going to have enough time for the second part.
We can do it next. It's 10 minutes
next
anyway.
Week.
We can do it next week.
Yeah.
Next week.
But I just find that fascinating. And what I would bet is that's probably not the first time. I mean, how many times leading up to that they had a family event that she was super stressed about, and it probably just keeps building and building.
Every year,
getting
5
worse.
times a year. Oh yes.
Yeah.
Subconscious beliefs
dysfunctional
form in
family
childhood.
reunion.
The beliefs form in childhood, and that's what Dr. Mate's talking about. Like, the parents in early family life, early childhood, the beliefs form in childhood, and then they solidify and they'll stay with us the rest of our life unless we change them.
Correct.
There could be some major, or with a lot of repetition, you can partially rewire your brain. That's a type of neuroplasticity. So it's not totally black and white, but most people have most of their childhood subconscious beliefs stay with them their entire life unless they intentionally, one way or another. Again, slowly over time with therapy, repetition is a type of neuroplasticity. You fix your self-talk. You get in the habit of, okay, I have this, this bad thought, this thought that's not serving me. I'm going to reframe it. And you do that over and over again. You do affirmations over and over again. Slowly over time, you can rewire your brain. That does help too. Or you just do it, massively in one shot or 2 or 3 shots like we do. And then, do a little maintenance over time. And when other stuff comes up, rewire that, different ways to do it, but it'll stay with you till the bad subconscious beliefs from childhood stay with you till the day you die, unless you rewire them.
And to add on to that,
it will come up over and over.
Yeah. To add on to what Ryan's saying, those subconscious programs are the software in your brain that runs your life and gives you your core belief, what you truly believe about yourself deep down to your core. If you change that software, it changes everything else. It's exactly like a computer. If a computer has poorly written software, it will malfunction. It will not do well. It will not be productive. It's the exact same thing with a human being. If they have lousy, maladaptive software installed when they are young, it will run forever, and you will watch them struggle year after year after year after year, never understanding what's happening. One of the things I want to do once we get this rolling, I quit my day job and all that kind of stuff, is I want to develop with some state a prison recidivism program.
Yeah.
I watch a fellow on YouTube. His name is Mandu. And if you watch these prisoners who come up to their parole hearings, if you listen to their stories and what they're going to do when they're going to get out of prison, if they get out, et cetera, every single one of them, notwithstanding any of them, every single one of them, you can hear that they're not good enough.
Yep.
And that they don't deserve what they might be able to get. And they're just hoping to land somewhere. And where are they going to go? They're going to go exactly right back where they came from, which was the place of all their triggers and all their trauma. So what will they do? They will do again exactly what put them into prison. If you could take that prisoner, get into that subconscious, and change that core belief of who that person is, I'll bet your recidivism rate will drop like mad.
Way the hell down.
All of a sudden, the prison system won't know what to do with themselves because there'll be nobody in prison. But there's plenty of clients out there, so lots of people will be flowing in, if anything else.
Yeah, we're gonna, we're all doing just normal session, and we're doing sessions for just whoever comes to us right now. We are gonna go after the salespeople because they track data, and that's just the best way to quantify the results. And we already know we're gonna get massive results. We've already done it for salespeople, but eventually the goal is get it. Yeah, military vets, people who just need it, people in prisons, people who want to perform at a higher level, because my income, went up about 2.5 times within like 2-3 years of doing this. And then it went up even higher after that. I mean, it's a performance tool. You get your self-belief like way up, and now you believe in your ability and value. You're authentically confident, confidently authentic, and your performance goes through the roof, and people like you more. People naturally look to you as a leader. It's freaking awesome.
Yep.
So
you're thinking about it too. I want to go back to the woman in the hospital. I was thinking about how her reaction, the arthritis reaction, could also be a defense mechanism from her body. So, you know, if that situation is so stressful, the body is like, I mean, if you listen to those kinds of reactions, you learn something. It's like, perhaps this is an unsafe, like, it's so unsafe for her that the body would rather be rushed to the hospital than to face her brother or whoever it was.
Yep.
Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
Yeah. And like, I had another point to add on to that. It was, I can't think of it. So do you want, yeah, we can wrap up the show if you want. I can't remember.
All right, good
It'll come
comment
later.
from our audience today. People talking about lymphoma, fibromyalgia, and yeah, internal psychological trauma. Man, it causes stuff to flare up and it causes disease. So I would say that's our show for today. That's a good point to stop. If you go down, you can watch actually part 2 of the clip. Dr. Gabor Mate's book, The Body Says No. Tons of scientific backing for that book. And the body-mind connection is very important so let's get you fixed. If one of you guys are struggling, I want you to know the struggling is optional. Doesn't mean it's not incredibly painful. A lot of people have no idea how to fix their struggles. But try the free course. Join our free community, school.com/RyanFowlerSOS-7231. That's a good starting point. You can also book like a free 30-minute consult with me. Link is in the description. You can do sessions with Tim, with Jordan, with me. But the free course actually teaches you how to hypnotize yourself, and it has a hypnosis audio. It's a complete basic course. It is basic, but it is complete. It's not just information and now to get the benefit you pay money. No, you can benefit for free. So try that out. Use these very powerful methods. Get that trauma out of you and move towards embracing a whole new way of living that is just you're gonna feel a lot better. And I know from experience, Jordan and Tim know my past trauma, very severe manic depression, general anxiety disorder, CPTSD, all that stuff. Totally fixed it. So you can do it. And we're just the guides. You really have the power to go in and rewire your own brain. All we do is show you what to do. You do it because you have that power. You may not know how to use it, but once you learn how to use it, you then realize that you truly do have more power than you know. That's our show. Anything final, guys?
Nope. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, you have more power than you know. That's our show. Thanks, everyone.